Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's our first Saturday in March. Where, oh, where is the time going? It's the first Saturday in March. It's also the weekend just before International Women's Day. And I absolutely love celebrating International Women's Day with my crafty ladies. So thank you for joining me this morning. We are going to be making a two-sided shaker card today. If you've ever made a shaker card before, often what happens is that you create a little frame on the front of your card that is raised up and you put little shaker bits in it, but it has a solid background. Today, I'm going to show you how to do a card that you can see from both sides. So we're going to cut holes in here and we are going to do some fun stuff with that. And the reason why I chose this for this week, if you remember last week, I used these cute little chameleons from Lawn Fawn, and they're part of their new line, which introduced what they call flip-flop stamps, which means they took an older stamp and created the mirror image for it. And when Darlene and I were talking, my brain started going. And it's like, how else can we use this whole flip-flop idea? And this way, I'm going to use these two chameleons, one on the front, one on the back. Now, if you don't have flip-flop stamps, that's totally okay. You can simply use a circle or a square and just make sure you have one for both the front and the back. So it's really easy to modify. You don't have to use it this way, but I thought it would be a really fun way to be able to showcase these guys, as well as give you a really fun technique. So to start with, we are going to prep just our card base before we build all of the shaker bits. Because we are going to be seeing through this window, we also need to cut some paper for the inside of our card. So right now I'm going to cut 3 pieces of paper that are 4 inches by 5 1/4. One is going to go on the front, one is going to go on the inside left, and one is going to go on the inside right. And how I have planned my colors and everything else is I'm going to use this beautiful new plaid. This one's called Ivy Remix from Lawn Fawn. That's going to be on my front as well as on my left panel. And then I'm just going to use this plain, well, it's not so plain. It's got cute little polka dots on it, if you can see. This is cardstock from the Color Vibe line in Simple Stories. And I'm going to have that polka dot side showing up. So it's going to have a nice contrast when it's showing through the window. So if you have not done so already, go ahead and cut your pieces that are 4 by 5 1/4. We need 3 of them. So because I want 2 of these, I'm simply going to start with the 4-inch cut, like so. Tuck my extra aside, and then I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees and cut it at 5 1/4 twice. Now, as always, ladies, if you have any questions or if I'm going too quickly or if you need me to go over something again, please just say, unmute your microphone and say, Sheri, can you show me that again? If you're joining us on replay, once it gets posted onto YouTube, please always feel free to press pause, rewind, whatever you need in order to get those steps that you missed. All right, so I've started with my 2 pieces that are 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm going to do a piece out of this one. Now, how tall is this one? This one is, oh, there. So I'm going to go 4 inches this way. And 5 1/4, just making room for my arm here, 5 1/4 this way. And just little scraps left over. I'm sure we'll find a use for that. So for right now, I'm just going to tuck my paper trimmer off to the side. And you can go ahead and we're going to start right out by attaching these right to our cards. We will be cutting through these. So with the ones that are going on that front panel, you're welcome to use tape. This time I'm actually going to use a combination of tape and a little bit of liquid glue, because when I cut my opening out, I want to make sure that it's all going to stay stuck and nothing lifts. Now we can always tuck some glue in afterwards as well, but if you've got some liquid glue handy, and it's quick drying because we are going to be cutting, so I guess that's the trade-off. Whatever glue works for you, we'll make it work. So I'm going to start by taking the polka dot. This one's just tape runner because it's just going to be on the back of our card. The lighter color is also nice, the lighter, less busy color, so that you can still write your sentiment or your message inside this card. All right, and then I like it on the diagonal. This paper's fun because it's got the straight on plaid on the front, the diagonal on the reverse side. So gluing on, and I'm just going to take a little bit of this liquid glue. I haven't used it in a while. There we go. Just really lightly, just so that it tacks down. All right, so that's going to go inside, and I've got it, because of the size that we cut, it's got a nice little white border all the way around. That's one side, and let's do the other side as well. So that's the front. I need to make sure I put it in the right spot. All right. Just smoothing it down, make sure I cap up my glue. So now I've got my front, my inside front, and my inside back. The nice part about having a couple of pieces of paper on this panel here is it gives it a little bit more weight, so it gives us something to really build with and hold that shaker panel. The next thing we have to decide is how big we want our shaker window to be. Looks like I'm having a little bit of internet issues, so if I'm a little jumpy, I apologize. I'm just going to keep going, and hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing. For my shaker card, I am actually going to be using 3D foam frames from 3L Scrapbook Adhesives, but you can absolutely just use your own foam tape. I've also got the big roll here. Right now, I am basing the opening of my hole on the foam frame that I have available. If you are doing it the opposite way with the tape, your opening's really going to depend on what size of die or punch or what have you that you want to use to create your opening. If you don't have any of those and you're going to do it with the paper trimmer like I'm going to do, then anything goes. You just need to decide your size. The size I have chosen to use is, and it's a bit funky, but only because I'm trying to match this frame here. It's 2 3/8 by 3 1/4. I do not have a punch or a die that matches that size. Trust me, I went through my whole stash and everything was either too long or too tall or not tall enough. So what I have done is I have just cut myself a little template out of just scrap cardstock. And this is now, let me just write on 2 3/8 by 3 1/4. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay it down here on my card front, and I'm going to very lightly trace it so that I can cut it with my paper trimmer. If you're using a die or a punch, now is the time for you to go ahead and window out of your card bases with your die. And I'm using pencil so that if I want to, I can erase it later, but I think the other bits we're going to add on top of this is going to cover it up, so I'm not too worried about it. So I'm going to now take my card and using my paper trimmer, I'm just going to stand up so I can see over top of it. I am going to cut. So because I'm using this kind of paper trimmer, I've just moved my blade to where that opening starts, push it down and through, and gently push it up. Because it's 3 layers, it's going to be a little bit stiff, so I apologize if I shake the table. All right, pick it up, rotate it so I can line up the second line. Do the same thing. Oops. Okay, good thing it's thick paper. I accidentally pushed it all the way through. You don't want to go all the way through to the end. You just want to stop at your corner. Rotate again. Line up those lines. You could always do the old X-Acto knife and ruler technique as well. Really, we're just trying to get a nice opening here. Okay, did I get all the way through? Sometimes your corners don't get all the way cut, so I just take my scissors, give a little snip. Oh, and there it pops right up. So now we have our opening. This little guy you can use for a tag, or you can save it for another project. Again, you can erase the pencil lines if you need to. I'm just going to pop it over there. The next piece of paper we need to prepare is our frame that's going to go over top. So once again, I am basing it on my foam frame. So my size is 2 3/4 by 3 5/8. But ultimately, you just want it to be bigger by about 1/4 of an inch, or depending on how wide your foam tape is. And we're going to cut a window out of that as well. So I cut 2 pieces that were 2 3/4 by 3 5/8. Which if I go like this, that's going to be our opening. So just like we did out of our card. And you know, this time I'm going to do it on the back just so that it doesn't show and I don't have to erase it.
Sorry, Sheri, what was the second measurements?
No apologies. Mine is 2 3/4 by 3 5/8. So I've just got my little outline there. Do the same thing on the other side. If you want a little bit more wiggle room, you could always go a little bit bigger. Oh, that didn't trace. There we go. And just like we did with the card, I'm going to use my paper trimmer to cut out that opening. Looks like we're about 1/4 of an inch away from each edge. Again, if you have nesting dies or if you have something that's a little bit smaller, then by all means, use the tools you have. So there's one little frame. Oh, gotta just trim that corner. And repeat for the other side. And there we have it. So we have our 2 frames. And what those are going to do is once we get our foam pieces on, it's going to hide the foam because the foam's not pretty. We want pretty paper instead. The last thing that we need to cut is our 2 pieces of acetate. And I thought I had cut mine already, but we can do it again because I don't know where it went. Good times. All right, so our acetate is going to be the same dimensions as the outside of our frames. So once again, my outside frame was 2 3/4 by 3 5/8. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces of acetate in those same measurements. And unfortunately, that's the problem with acetate because it's clear, it's easy to get lost. So I'm going to do the 3 5/8 first. I guess when I find them, it just means I have to do another shaker card. Oh, darn. There we go. So 2 3/4 and 2 3/4. All right, all of our pieces are now ready. Hope everyone is still sticking with me. I'm gonna take a sip of coffee. All right, so make sure you keep your pieces handy so that they don't get lost. I'm putting my 2 frames at the top, my 2 pieces of acetate with them. The extra pieces of your frame you can use for embellishments later on. And we need our card and now our foam tape or foam frames if you have them. Luckily with these sets of foam frames, you get 2 sheets. So that means you get 2 of each size, which definitely makes it easier. And what I did is I just put a little X in the corner of the one I wanted to use so that I can find it easily after the fact. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do the inside frame first. So I am going to take one of my foam frames and just surround my opening. If you are using foam tape, do the same thing. Typically with a shaker card, I would recommend doing a couple of layers if you're using tape, especially if you've got a thin tape. But because we're going to be doing it on both sides, your double foam is actually going to be 1 on each side. So I will leave it up to you as to whether you want double thickness on both sides or just single thickness on each side. That's a personal preference. It will also depend on what kind of shaker bits you're using. These little beach balls that I'm going to use are pretty flat, so I don't need a lot of space between my acetate, but I will leave that up to you for what supplies you are using. So I'm going to grab one of these foam frames, the one that I've based all my measurements on, and I am going to surround my opening. And again, maybe standing up will be better. Like so. I'll give you a minute or two. If you are using foam tape, it will take a couple more seconds than how I did it. But that's the first step, is getting your window surrounded by your foam. Because this is the back side, so to speak, the next two things I'm going to do is I'm going to peel the backing off my tape, lay down my acetate, and then I'm going to glue my frame on top of the acetate, covering up my foam. So that's pretty straightforward. My opening is just a little bit bigger than what my foam frame was, but that's okay because my other foam frame is going to mirror that on the back. So I'm not too worried. So I'm going to peel off this. I'm going to lay down. Make sure your acetate is clean. There's no little speckly bits on it. Some acetates also have a film on it. So if your acetate is particularly cloudy, likely it has a little bit of protective film on it. So make sure you peel that off before you stick it down. So far we're just following some of the basic steps that you would do for a shaker card, but we haven't put the bits in yet, and that's okay because we're going to do that on the other side. Next, I'm going to now attach my pink frame over top of my acetate. It looks crooked, but only because my card is crooked. If you have score tape, you can use that. If you just have tape runner, you can do that. If you're using liquid glue, just be aware that it could slide a little bit on the acetate because it's slippery. Is there something you can do to clean the acetate? I just saw a quick question there. You could take maybe an unused or even a used dryer sheet and just give it a really gentle wipe. That'll help capture, like if you've got little lint bits or glitter even. I don't recommend at this point necessarily washing it with water because, oh, someone's saying eyeglass, those microfiber cloths for cleaning your eyeglasses is also a great idea. Absolutely. But I don't recommend water because it's going to leave water droplets behind no matter what you do. So try and find something dry to clean that acetate if you need to. All right. I think I'm going to be able to just make it with this foam tape. I don't have my skinny foam tape here with me, or sorry, not foam tape, score tape. But use what you've got. And like I said, if you're using liquid glue, just be aware that the acetate will really make it slippery. So be very careful when you are placing your frame down on the acetate, which is why for this reason, I like having a double-sided tape of some sort. So in this particular case, I'm using the tape just because it's dry and it's the right size, not necessarily because I need the strength. All right. Now the fun part is getting all the backings up. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Stand over top. Line it up as best as you can. And stick it down. So now that inside part of our shaker card is all functionally ready. We haven't decorated it yet, of course, but it is functionally ready for the next step. Hopefully everyone is still with me. I'm now going to flip over and close my card. And you know what? You'll see that you can see through that. That's okay because we have not done this front bit yet. It will absolutely get covered up when we do the next step. Oh, I got some glitter. So with this next step, we are going to start again. And actually, I'm going to just open it up just so I've got room to work here. And so it doesn't bounce. Sometimes it's hard when that card front bounces. So I am going to start once again with my foam frame. And then I'm going to stop there. So go ahead and put your foam tape or your foam frame around this window. Do not remove the backing yet. That is a key step. Do not remove that backing. All right, so I've got my next frame. I'm going to cover up my opening here, or mirror my opening, I guess is the better word. Oh, try not to let that backing come off as it sticks to your finger. Okay. So as you start looking at your card, you will notice you've got that nice deep well now starting to form. That's going to hold all your shaker bits and create all of the fun little interactive element. But you may notice that your foam tape, even on the side, is still a little bit sticky. So this is where I'm going to grab my powder tool and just go around the edges of that tape, trying to get both layers so that things don't stick where they're not supposed to. If you do not have a powder tool, you can just use a little bit of cornstarch or a little bit of baby powder, and I would either take a paintbrush or you can even just use the end of your finger and gently rub it on those sticky bits until it's not sticky anymore. Try to avoid getting it all over the acetate, but as we just mentioned in that in response to that question, if you do, that's where you go in with that microfiber cloth or the dryer sheet to just clean that acetate down again. So I'm just going to pop out a little bit of powder, and I'm just going along my edges to remove any residual sticky that may be around. You can just kind of gently, okay, I'm feeling it now. It's not sticky anymore. If you still have sticky areas, just go in like so and get those areas unstuck. The next step is kind of my favorite step because this is where we're going to put our little bits into our window. Now, the nice thing with shaker cards is, well, first of all, it's very subjective. So you can put in as many or as few shaker bits as you wish. You could also mix and match. So I'm actually going to put in some beach balls and some of these silver little stars that we have. And again, a little bit goes a long way, but it becomes your personal style. So I'm just going to dump a few out. I want to try and get some of those yellow ones. I'm just going to put them, and I'm going to try and keep them as close to the middle as I can, just so that we make sure things don't get stuck where we don't want it to. Oh, you know what? Let's just put them all in. All right. So those are my beach balls. And like I said, I'm just trying to keep them towards the center. And you want to try not to let them have, like, not have too many layers. Try to keep them as flat as possible. If they get stuck against the acetate, they're not going to move as much. And that's the fun of a shaker card, is making sure everything moves, it makes noise. All right. Now I'm going to just pop a few little silver guys in here. Not a lot, so I'm going to even just try and take a little pinch. So that's going to add some sparkle. Maybe a little bit more. Alrighty. Close those back up so that they don't spill. The next step is probably the trickiest step. We want to peel up our backings and try not to bump or dump the little bits that are in the center. And just so you know what the next step is, we're going to peel up the backing, and then we're going to put our acetate on top. And that's going to close it all in and create that little shaker box to keep everything contained. And look, I've already got a sequin there. So try not to jiggle. Peel up all your backings. Don't sneeze. And lay your acetate on top to seal it all in, seal in all that goodness. There we go. And now I'm looking at mine. I am a little bit crooked. I've got a little piece of the acetate hanging over here, but everything's all sealed. So I can just try and trim that off. Or if you know your frame is big enough and will cover it, then you don't need to stress. All right. Shaky, shaky, wakey, wakey. Last step is to attach your second frame to cover up that foam again. That little piece of acetate stuck around there. Oops, tapey, tapey. Or liquid if you've got it, or tape runner, whatever works for you. This is just decorative, so if you happen to miss some corners with your tape, that's okay. The real trick is getting that acetate all the way around. Okay. One, two, three, and four. Get that laid down nice. And there you have your double-sided shaker box. So at minimum, if you just like that shaker box, I mean, you could just simply take a sentiment and put it over top. Remember I spoke about you could punch a circle here and put your sentiment on. And then again, whatever you do to the front, you want to do to the back because you know it is showing through. But I have my little chameleon somewhere and I am going to put him in the middle. Again, let's do a really quick coloring job here. What color will I do? I'm going to do, he's going to be a blue chameleon this time. Oh, that's a dark blue. We were listening to a podcast this morning, an advertising podcast. And I think last week I talked to you about tellus and lizards and chameleons and everything else. And ironically, the podcast talked about that today. I'm going to color it his eye. And let's do some little green stripes. And then I'm going to do this chameleon the opposite color. So we'll color him green. There we go. With a lighter green eye and some blue stripes. And we'll do a super quick fussy cut job. If you have dies, you can cut them out. Good thing they're nice and round. And easy, except here around their little feet, but we'll make it work. You could add glitter to these guys. All right, so there's one. Doing the feet first this time. All right. So if I have fussy cut them properly, I'm pretty good. They're going to line up. So that way, when I put them on my acetate, I can do a front and a back. So let's put our little blue guy on the front. I can just use regular tape runner because I'm going to mirror him on the back, and that'll hide that tape. Flip that over. Tape runner again. How cute is that? And then if you wanted to do a third one down in this little corner just to balance everything off, you could do that as well. So there you have it, ladies. That is our double-sided shaker card. It's a few little intricate steps, but it really has a great impact and gives something a little bit different than what you would expect from a shaker card. So please, I would love to see what you create. Feel free to post on our Facebook page or in the Papercrafts Inner Circle, or send me an email. We always love to see how you interpret our classes, and it's always fun just to see what you are creating. So I wish you a very happy International Women's Day. I think it's chilly out there this weekend, so it's a good weekend to stay in crafting. And I wish you all a fabulous weekend.